All right, well, this is some software I've written up for data scraping. I'm just data scraping Indeed.com to find keywords. Recording this video just in case I ever come back and don't understand the syntax or what my thought processes were. I have everything commented up, but that's just in case. Also, in case any employers ever want to see a walkthrough of this, just to see that I'm not a fraud. I don't know. So let me screen share here. So I'll start with this right here. So my main, that's where my finished product is. This is all uploaded to a GitHub repository. I have a practice file. So if I'm ever trying to figure out how to get a process to work, or how to convert something and graph something or work with data or something like that, I'll have a practice file just to mess around with data to try and get stuff working so that I know when I put it into my main, it's going to work. Then I have two playground files. So this is, at this point, they're both just copies of main. But while I'm coding stuff out, typically I will have I'll start on a playground, code out kind of a rough draft. If I start to feel like there's a different route I can take, I'll start a Mark II or a Mark III or even a Mark IV, just to explore different ideas, but preserve what I've had. I suppose I could do that with source control, but I like it this way. So right now I think they're all the same just because I figured out something that works and got them all to the same point essentially, without too much of a difference. I have a docs here. We take a peek at this. If it loads in, we'll see if it does. Well, anyway, if it doesn't load in, this is, yeah, like it says, it's project notes. So I have a schedule that I tried to follow just because I am so bad at following through with projects. So this is a great way to keep me motivated and try and get things done in a reasonable amount of time. I've got potentially useful websites listed. I've got notes on everything. These are all notes on data scraping. This is an old project I have in. That's an old project that I did on data scraping that was completely different reason, but just in case I needed any examples. And then all of this here is working with figuring out how to count word frequency, because ultimately the basis of this project was finding out which words were most frequently found on a in job postings for a specific job type in a specific area, so that I knew kind of where to direct my studies and focuses. Hopefully it'll help. Hopefully I'll have a job and someone will actually look at this video at some point. So if we just want to run through how it works, the main, so I'm calling the main function. It's just going to prompt me for jobs I'm looking for, what city, what state, post that in. This little piece of code here, the and limit equals 50, means that it's going to show me 50 URLs instead of just the default 15 or so that I think it is. And I'm sorting it by date just because some companies will pay to have their ads prioritized or their job postings prioritized, and I didn't want that. I wanted a more, well, a less skewed data set. And so then it's going to pass this search URL into this. Going to use the response or the request, excuse me, library. Make sure that URL checks out. If it does, I'm parsing it with Beautiful Soup. And then I am sending that parsed HTML into the dot for the get href tag function. It's going to find A tags. So those are all of the job listings. And then it's going to get the href tags out of each of those A tags. And those are the links to each of the job postings, because I need to click on them or open them individually in order to get to the text that I was looking for. And all of the href links have this VJS equals 3 in common. So that's what I'm using. It's my kind of my keyword to figure out which links out of my A tags are the actual ones I want to look at, because there were multiple href tags in each A tag. So getting the right ones out, and then I'm sending them into here, just adding them to this, base address. And I'm doing the same thing I did before. I'm going through with requests, making sure each one of those links checks out. And then I'm scraping, or I'm parsing the HTML out of each of them. Instead of getting the A tags though, I'm just parsing out all of the text out of them. So if that shows, find all, looking for these oh yeah, I'm looking for this job description text, and then I'm just pulling this get text out. So all of the text at all. I have run into a couple problems with that. Sometimes I think what's happening is there are HTML tags that have an ID of something. And I think for some reason I'm pulling that ID too. So some of my, some of the words I'm pulling out of these job descriptions are kind of funny. They look like HTML tags. They don't have, they're just strange. They don't belong. Anyway, then I'm just, this is my little function for counting up the words and seeing which words are most common. So walk it through here. It takes out anything that isn't in the alphabet with regular expressions, regex, and it's gonna just add that to a giant list. I'm removing any empty spaces, making it all lowercase just so I can work the data really easy. And then this is important. This is a search list. Originally, I didn't have a search list in. Well, we'll come back to the search list, I guess. So I am, well, I guess it fits in. So basically, I'm going through that list, and then I'm counting up everything, how frequently each of the words in that list are found, but then I'm cutting out anything that isn't in this list. And the reason for that is because the first couple of times I ran it, obviously the most common words on Indeed.com were the, and, with, a, but, or, for I mean the first probably 20 most common words were all just very they didn't really tell me anything. They were too basic. So I made a search list. Something else that I did that worked really well is, instead of this in search list function here, I had a or method, I suppose. I just had a if k, or if v, if the value is less than or equal to 50, because I'm looking at 50 different job descriptions, and I figured that if a keyword or if a word appeared less than 50 times, it probably wasn't going to be one of those really boring, uninteresting words. And it was, it wasn't so common that everyone wanted it. And so it kind of gave me a better idea of the most popular things people were looking for, as opposed to just general knowledge that I should always have, if that makes sense. And then played with the data frame a little bit with goals to graph it, but I honestly, the way it prints out is good enough for me. I don't really care how it prints it all out, and I kind of like the command line look. It makes me feel like a real hacker. So anyway, let's give it a run. I will warn myself, future self, that Indeed.com has progressively gotten more and more strict with their scraping. The more I've scraped, the more they've made me confirm that I'm not a robot. So I think they're kind of catching up to me on data scraping. They don't really like that, obviously. So let's see, what kind of job am I looking for? I would say I am looking for a computer science job. That's a good start. What city? Oh, any city. Oh, I was gonna say Chicago, but I honestly, Chicago and Illinois. Chicago, Illinois. Gosh. All right, let's go Denver, Colorado, and I'm gonna just do the code because that's what the URL is gonna look for. So here it is, parsing the HTML. I kind of have little, you'll see I have these little print statements everywhere just so I can keep myself, I know where it breaks, I guess. It's, you know, instead of using the debugger, I throw those in. I also use the debugger a lot, but I threw that in there for future employers. In case they're like, oh, that's not good practice, but no, this should, unfortunately, it's going to take a long time, and this video is already kind of too long, but it's going to scrape 50 href tags. I don't know what we're at now, probably about 25 or something like that, so halfway there. While we're waiting, is there anything else I want to show you in my code? Oh yeah, here's a graph function. I was going to graph it, but I just passed it because like I said, I'm not too worried about the visuals. I have lots of practice making visuals, and just for this project, I don't really need it. Anything else cool? Lambda functions, I guess they're cool. They're kind of a pain in the butt, silly Python, but so what are we getting at? About 50? Almost there. Come on. It's working on it. I should check I got full bars, so it should be about as fast as it's gonna get. Well, maybe I can cut this out of the video, but it's gonna get through all the href tags, and then the next thing it's gonna print out is, yep, there it is, splicing text and cleaning up. So here's my cleaning up. I'm starting to cut out anything that's not a letter, the alphabet, empty strings, anything like that. And then it's gonna start comparing everything to that. There we go, awesome. Okay, so let's see. The most common one, experience, out of my keywords. Obviously, that's not a super ideal way to do it, because if I ever look up something that isn't software engineering or computer science, it's gonna have 0, keywords within this list. So not a super ideal method, but it works for my purposes, which is why I made it, I suppose. So experience pretty high, software obviously, data, knowledge, design, communication, AWS, that's actually a pretty big one, it looks like, in this search. It differs from place to place. There have been locations I've looked at where AWS only has 2, here in Denver, right there in Denver, I suppose. It's a little more common. Python 14, JavaScript 15, C 17. So C is kind of a weird one, because I did remove everything that wasn't a number, or not anything that wasn't a letter. I don't know if it's talking about C# or C++ or something like that, but I can be sure that it's a branch of C. That's good enough for me. I'm all right at C++, so I feel like if they're looking for someone that can do C, I can get there from where I'm at. Java 7, Oracle, HTML, creativity. Anyway, so this is kind of cool. Remote, that's kind of surprising. Okay. So obviously I'm a little constrained by all of the computer science words I came up with, but I didn't want to have to deal with looking at a huge giant list of words. Anyway, so that's a basic run through of my project. So